Stocks slip after a strong opening to trade at the day's low. FMCG and utilities lead the decline, while PSU banks, autos and capital goods eke out gains today.
Reliance reports a weaker than expected quarter for O2C, hurt by the windfall tax, even as telecom and retail report strong performances.
ICICI Bank and Kotak Mahindra Bank deliver strong growth with higher margins. But mid-rung lenders like RBL Bank and IDFC Bank see slippages rise.
JSW Steel gains after the company tells CNBC-TV18 that margin will improve in the second half of the year, and the company has paid some debt despite adverse forex impact.
42-year-old Rishi Sunak is set to assume office as the first Indian origin Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. The son-in-law of N.R. Narayan Murthy will take over from controversy-ridden Liz Truss. Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Lunch, and a very, very warm greeting on the occasion of Diwali to our viewers, and also a very, very happy New Year and New Samvat from the entire team of Business Lunch. I'm Nisha Podar, and with me as always is Pavitra. Pavitra, happy Diwali, happy New Year.
Happy Diwali to you too, Nisha. We've come back after this long weekend and we have another one, so this is definitely a good festive week.
You're just waiting for tomorrow's off.
Are you not?
Me too. I'll be really joking if I say no. But I hope you all had great festivities. A quick look at the market. Yes, it looks like that the market is giving up that festive cheer that we had seen during Muhurat and the past few days. Well, today at the moment 17,673 level, after remember opening above the 17,800 level, market Nifty 50 has quickly let go of those positions. At the moment 0.3% down in trade. Bank Nifty is showing slight outperformance, but not much to speak about. But at least it is not leading the charge when it comes to the decline as well as the sell-off. Mid-cap universe, that's holding on strong, outperforming the key indices, 0.4% up in trade at the moment. And also that's the reason why the advanced decline could have been worsened, but it is still on the much weaker side to begin with right after Diwali. Well, the festive cheer is still on in our minds, but market seems to be giving up gains wherever a profit booking can be really taken in. Nestle India, Britannia, Hindustan Unilever, that is the consumption stocks, which are probably considered quite expensive by the market, are the key drivers for the downtick. In fact, the key draggers at the moment on Nifty 50. Pavitra.
Oh, absolutely. You know, like you said, from the top, we've definitely given up quite a bit. It's an over 120 point kind of loss that we've seen from the top of the session. But today is a lot about the banking names, and it's quite split. So while something like SBI and ICICI Bank are holding up, on the downside, you have several. So it's something like a Kotak, Axis on the downside, a lot of the smaller banks as well. So something like an RBL Bank, IDFC Bank, all after their earnings are reacting, and you can see the cuts come through over there. You also have Reliance, which after the Muhurat day kind of cheer that we saw is seeing a little bit of a softish kind of trade. What's holding up is the auto pack once again. So a lot of those names will be up for you. And then this week could be a lot about the tech stocks, because in the US, you have a lot of the big earnings which are lined up. We are taking it slightly easy this week, but they have all of these companies which are going to be posting results. So I'd watch out for the tech space as well. But that's what's really going on with the market action. Let's quickly move on and talk about individual names. Like I told you, it's a lot about banking, and private lender Kotak Mahindra Bank is under pressure today, despite reporting quite a strong set of numbers in the second quarter. So net interest margins came in at an all-time high. Ekta is here to tell us more about that and how Q2 really looked for the company.
Thanks for that. Well, yes, for Kotak Mahindra Bank, you know, it was probably a little bit of a concern that the net interest margins, which are above 5%, may not sustain at those levels going forward. But just to take you through a couple of key parameters, the NII was up around 27% year on year. The net profit was up around 27% year on year as well. Net interest margins, like I mentioned, came in at 5.17%. Loan growth was strong at around 25% year on year. Slippages were lower, 983 crores versus 1,435 crores. And analysts, like I mentioned, believe that maybe the net interest margins might have to normalize going forward, and the stock is also trading at around over 4 times price to book value. Now, a couple of brokerages have raised their target price when it comes to Kotak Mahindra Bank. For example, Citi has a buy call. They've raised their target price to 2120. HSBC has a hold call. They've raised their target price as well. Morgan Stanley, equal weight call with a target price of 2215. Credit Suisse with a neutral call at with a target price of around 2,000 rupees per share. Nomura also has a neutral call. Now, a couple of key brokerage takeaways is that the margins and the asset quality really lifted the profitability this time round. The core pre-provisioning operating profit was in line. Loan growth was healthy. And however, a couple of brokerages do believe that the valuations capture the optimism that we are seeing in the earnings, and that's probably one of the reasons you are seeing a decline in Kotak's stock today.
All right, it's a day of, digesting the banking results, Ekta. So tell us about RBL Bank as well. That is losing in trade on the back of elevated slippages, also decline in the operating profits of the company. What's in store going forward, and what's weighed down the performance?
Well, yes, I'll take you through a couple of key statistics for RBL Bank first. NII was up around 16.3%. The profit was higher on account of a low base, as well as the provisions declining this time round. The net interest margins came in at around 4.5%. But really, the chink in the armor for RBL Bank was really the operating earnings, which were impacted. It was down 25.85% on a year-on-year basis. It was the 5th quarter of a year-on-year decline. The bank, in fact, has guided for moderate growth in operating profit in the near term. Slippages were higher at over 800 odd crores as well. Annualized slippage ratio was at around 5.16%, and advances were up around 12.4% year on year. While the advances did grow in double digits, if you compare it to the other banks, it wasn't as robust as what we've seen. The bank does expect the credit growth to remain at around 15% for FY23. So maybe it was the operating profit plus the higher slippages which resulted in the stock seeing the downside.
All right, Ekta, thanks a lot for getting us all of those earnings highlights from Kotak Bank as well as RBL. But staying with the banking space, IDFC First Bank also saw slippages rise, even as the other income drove profit higher. So earlier today, we spoke with MD and CEO V. Vaidyanathan, who said that slippages will be lower going forward. He's also eyeing a loan growth, which is quite good, of 20 to 25%. This is for all of FY23. So let's listen in to what he had to tell us.
In the nature of a business, something flows, something writes back. Flow back, that's part of life. So I want to just tell you that our provisioning coverage ratio on the retail book is now 77%. So you should look forward to actually lesser slippages. You should look forward to lesser provisions from the bank going forward. Maybe in that corridor of 5.8 to 6 through the rest of this year, you can expect NIM to happen. You can expect deposits to come. You can expect loan book to grow. Our understanding that our return on equity, which is right now touched 10% pretty quickly, as you notice, from 0 to 10 in 3 years, our return on equity adjusted for all costs will start crossing 15 by end of, as per the guided plan, by the exit quarter of FY25 or so. So we feel that this bank will not even stop at 15 ROE. The core economics are such that it will take us towards more like the 16, 17, 18-ish ROE, but we will get there.
All right, so that was a lot of numbers to really digest and a lot of focus on the guidance going forward from the banking space. But before I move on to other earnings and the reactions, here's an important piece of news that's flashing on our screens. WhatsApp services are down, and Meta has stated that they will restore the WhatsApp services as soon as possible. You know, Pavitra, it's just so important. All our wishes have gone through WhatsApp, and not just for Social Connect, but WhatsApp has a tie-up with JioMart of Reliance Industries, so even businesses could be impacted. So an important piece of information there, and life comes to a standstill when WhatsApp doesn't work. So keep an eye out on that development. But let's shift focus to one stock which is doing well in trade today. Almost 2% up in trade today is JSW Steel, which posted a weak set of Q2 numbers with EBITDA as well as the margins both coming in well below street estimates. In fact, earlier today, we caught up with the joint MD and Group CFO of JSW Steel, Sheshagiri Rao, and he believes that the benefit from the lower input costs like coking coal as well as iron ore will play out from the third quarter onwards for the company. Listen in.
Whatever prices as on date, if you take into account, and then see what is the benefit in cost that can come in the Q3 over Q2, then there could be $80 per ton of coal used in the consumption. That is the kind of benefit we are expecting to come in the Q3. As far as iron ore prices are concerned, the overall reduction which has happened in the Q2, that has happened in phases, something in July, something in August, something in September. So the full benefit of lower iron ore prices have not flown in the consumption in the last quarter. So that benefit also will come in the Q3. In this quarter, we expect the steel prices to be stable at better volumes, and at the same time, costs are going to come down. So all this together, I think Q3 and Q4 of this financial year will be much better than what you have seen in Q2. The FOB price of China is $580, $590 per ton. If you take another $40 as the transportation cost and multiply by 83 rupees, which is a rupee dollar, and if you have to pay 7.5% duty and then add the port charges and other costs relating to imports, then the landed cost is almost equal or maybe slightly higher than the domestic prices today.
Okay, and it is really on the back of these comments that JSW Steel is gaining in trade. It's up around 2% and one of the big gainers on the Nifty today in spite of what was a disappointing set of earnings. But another one that we're tracking today is MCX. Now, this one is the top FNO gainer. It's actually up over 8% today after a standout set of second quarter numbers. So Surbhi is here to really break down all of those numbers and take us through the fine print. Surbhi.
MCX's earnings were a beat on all fronts. Their revenue was up 53%. Their EBIT nearly doubled at 60 odd crores versus 27 crores same time last year. The margins came in at 47% versus 33%, and their PAT was up 94%. Now, most of this growth is coming from the average traded value in the option segment, where it has grown 5 times at 31,000 crores. Whereas in the future segment, it is down about 7% on a year-on-year basis, but overall, good numbers by MCX.
All right, good numbers for MCX. Surbhi, thanks so much for getting us that analysis. With that, we'll slip into a short break at the moment and to digest all the numbers. But an important development today in the national capital, Delhi's air quality dips as
Welcome back. You're still tuned into Business Lunch, and let's bring you some important news from the fiscal front. Sources are telling CNBC-TV18 that the government will have to rationalize spending to meet the 6.4% fiscal deficit target, as buoyant tax receipts may not be enough to cover additional expenditure. So this is information that Sapna is picking up from our sources. Sapna, fill us in with the details.
Well, absolutely right. Some kind of rationalization expenditure may be required, and probably that's already underway as the RE and the B meetings are already underway. Having said that, two important aspects here, of course, burgeoning additional expenditure and also some uncertainty creeping in on the non-tax revenue side. First, on the non-tax revenue side, well, no clear estimates as of now how much the RBI dividend could be, and there could be some gap again on the disinvestment receipts. As far as the additional expenditure is concerned, somewhere around 3 odd lakh crore is a number that's floating around. Some more additional demands may be coming in from the ministries. As I just mentioned, the RE meetings are on right now. So maybe around 3 to 3.5 lakh odd crore roughly could be the fiscal gap that we are talking about as of now. And going forward, maybe the buoyant tax receipts may not be sufficient to cover that. If you look at direct taxes, well, they are projected to grow at around 30% in the current financial year, which is fantastic. But despite that, it could be a tight rope walk for the government as far as managing the fisc is concerned. And let's not forget another thing. From next year onwards, they have to reduce the fiscal deficit by over 50 basis points every year, because by FY26, the government has promised to reach a fiscal deficit below 4.5%. Hence, this year's number of 6.4% becomes very important. They should not slip on that. And as of now, of course, there is no plan for any deviation from the fiscal glide path, but it's a tight fiscal rope walk.
All right, Sapna, very, very happy Diwali and New Year to you. And yes, government looking at keeping that fiscal discipline intact for this financial year. Now on Sunday, India's largest rocket sent 36 OneWeb satellites into orbit as part of a constellation which aims, remember, to provide global broadband internet services by the end of 2023. Now, Bharti Enterprises has entered into the OneWeb venture along with the UK government, and Chairman Sunil Bharti Mittal says that a launch is expected to be every month and all satellites will be in the orbit by March 2023. Let's listen into what he had to say on this auspicious occasion.
Then I think the important development of today is that India will do a first major commercial launch from an Indian rocket, from an Indian soil, and that to my mind is a very proud moment. This is a historic day for India. It will be a very, very important mission for OneWeb.
Some timeline on when we can expect a rollout perhaps, and by when the satellites, perhaps the whole entire constellation will be in space?
Well, 6 launches are left. As you know, we lost those launches which could have been finished by June this year. Now we'll be finishing all our launches by March. 2 of them from ISRO NCL here in Sriharkota, and the balance 3 to 4 from the US by SpaceX. So these are all happening in sequence. Every month there'll be a launch now. That has delayed our services in India. We expect them to start by middle of next year. Services are already available in India, but they're patchy. There'll be few hours, but to give a 24/7 services, we will need more satellites to go up. Today, services are available in Alaska, Canada, Greenland, UK. So hopefully we will have our services fully available soon.
Just one final question, sir, on the issue of allocation versus auctioning, the band between 27.5 and 28.5. Your concerns there for the government to be sensitive towards the needs of the space industry?
Well, I think Honorable Prime Minister has very clearly said satellite is going to be one of the important mix of providing telecom services, especially to areas where we can't reach by mobile networks or fiber networks. So how do you cover them? These are the places in desert, Himalayas, in forests, in deep sea, and the applications are very critical for many government agencies. I think the government will make a right decision to provide spectrum for satellite communication, which will make a business case viable in India, like everybody else has done in the world. I know there are noises, pressures, but you cannot compare a satellite 15-acre ground station spectrum allocation like that of an all-India mobile spectrum. So people are trying to confuse this discourse, and I think we'll be able to illuminate. And there are lots of good experts within the government who will understand this point.
All right, very interesting chat there with Sunil Bharti Mittal. But with that, let's focus on another important story that we are tracking. And this is on the deteriorating air quality in Delhi and a lot of its adjoining areas. Just a day after Diwali, Delhi's air quality has taken a turn for the worse, falling into the very poor category with the air quality index hitting 323 this morning. In fact, fine particulate matter levels were also 5 to 6 times higher than the national standard. So that is the kind of deterioration that we're seeing in air quality. This is as a result of course, firecrackers being burst in several parts of the national capital. Remember, there was a ban by the Delhi government, but in spite of that, we've seen heavy bursting of firecrackers, and that has led to this kind of increase. There's also, of course, a rise in stubble burning in the surrounding areas. So that is why we're really seeing the spike in the air quality index.
That's right, Pavitra. In fact, we must celebrate Diwali with climate consciousness in mind, and that will be the aim every year to reduce air pollution. With that, we'll slip into a short breather on Business Lunch. But when we return, Rishi Sunak, elected leader of the Conservative Party in the UK after a tumultuous 3-day race. Welcome back. You're watching Business Lunch. To the global development, and that's a big one we have been tracking. Well, the former UK Chancellor Rishi Sunak is set to take over as the country's Prime Minister today, which will make him, remember, the first Indian origin Prime Minister of Britain. Now, the 42-year-old Sunak is likely to be invited by King Charles to form the government and is also to lay out his economic policy in a speech at 10 Downing Street. In fact, my colleague Sanjay Suri is reporting straight from there.
Rishi Sunak takes over as Prime Minister formally and finally later today. This is handover day. It begins with Liz Truss holding a meeting of her outgoing cabinet starting about 1:30 p.m. IST, and then about 2:45 p.m. IST she will come out on Downing Street and make a statement, and then the transition events take over. She goes to Buckingham Palace, hands in her resignation to the king, and then shortly after we have Rishi Sunak being driven to Buckingham Palace, where he will meet with King Charles, who will then invite him to form government. Sunak is expected back at Downing Street after that and is due to make a statement on Downing Street at 5 minutes past 4 IST. This is the formal, ceremonial almost part of the handover, and then of course we'll be looking to see who is in the cabinet that he is due to announce, and that will be a critical indicator. Rishi Sunak has said that he wants to unite the party, and it's very likely he will invite Liz Truss into the cabinet, also Penny Mordaunt. For that reason, the Conservative Party has been deeply and publicly and nastily divided over the past several weeks and months. Then on, after the announcement of the cabinet, it will be the difficult business of running the government at a difficult time, but he is expected to hit the ground running.
All right, thanks Sanjay Suri for that. So this created a lot of excitement over the weekend, Pavitra. But I would still say what was a Diwali bonanza for us was the win against Pakistan in the T20 World Cup and Virat Kohli's performance.
Oh, absolutely nothing can take away from that.
Nothing can beat that, and that was the real Diwali gift and bonanza for all of us.
Oh, absolutely. It left everyone in good spirits right before Diwali, and even to, watch Virat Kohli really take it like that, right, after he's had such a bad streak which extended a long time. Very heartening to watch.
Even the best of sportsmen go through a difficult phase, so that's all.
But look at how he's come back
so well.
Absolutely. But on that very optimistic note from Nisha and me, we're going to wind up on this edition of Business Lunch. Thank you all very much for tuning in. We have Mid-Cap Radar after this short break.
Brought to you